1950, and the communist invaders were pushing back the United Nations troops toward the southeast tip of the Korean Peninsula. Refugees who had left their homes as the Red Army swept southward choked the roads as they fled to Busan and their last chance for safety. Meanwhile, preparations were being made to evacuate missionary personnel from Korea. 60 miles north of Busan, a group of missionaries met with an official of their foreign mission board.
Yesterday morning, when we heard for the first time that the communist troops had come across the line and were attacking Seoul, and we knew that we'd have to take this trip of 250 miles to the coast, we agreed upon two things. We agreed that we would all stay together until the women and the children were safe. And we agreed that then some of the rest of you might decide to stay in Korea. Some of you have decided to stay. You continue to work at the side of a courageous church that has already proven itself under the persecution of the Japanese military government. I talked with the moderator of that church this afternoon in Taegu. He was concerned for our safety, but he was not concerned about the continuing Christian witness of the church. Some of you may get permission very soon to come back to Korea, and we will all be eagerly awaiting the day when we can come back to work with the church in establishing God's kingdom in Korea.
The wounds of war are deep and slow to heal. Long after the guns have been silenced, the scars of battle remain. The dispossessed return to their ravaged and broken homes. The things of earth can be laid waste by war, but the spirit of man is made of sterner stuff. Life persists, and mere things can be reclaimed or rebuilt. It will be years before all the ugly reminders of battle can be erased. But here and there, in the providence of God, a sign of his covenant stands against the sky. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. It is with complete faith in his promises that the congregations of Korea, having withstood the test of war, now return to their places of worship. The sanctuary is a holy place, though it may be only the shell of the old church building, leveled by bombs and gunfire. There are those who remain outside the open door. The proud and the self-sufficient do not enter easily. Those within the walls are there because they know their need. Those beyond have need as well. But this is too lowly a place for a man of refinement. Members of his family may meet with the others, but not he. But as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. They have come from every walk of life to renew again their ties of Christian fellowship and to join in corporate worship before his throne. Under the inspired leadership of Korean pastors, the Korean church is a growing church and one of the largest indigenous communions in all of Asia. But still beyond the open door is the proud one, the vain, and the self-sufficient. His younger daughter and her sister, the oldest child, know the haughtiness of their father, and they know his pride. But as followers of Christ, they are learning to be humble and without pretense. Give thanks unto the Lord. Call upon his name. Remember his marvelous works that he hath done, his wonders, and the judgments of his mouth. For great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. Give unto the Lord, ye kindreds of the people. Give unto the Lord the glory due his name. Bring an offering, and come before him. The stewardship of the Korean church is known throughout the Christian world. Homes have been lost, property has been destroyed, families have been uprooted. Yet a New Year's service is set aside for gifts toward the building of a new church home. Gifts of money and of rice, and many are the offerings that are sacrificial. It isn't easy for the younger girl to measure the value of her sister's offering. She thinks only of the food and clothing it might have bought. He which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. In Korea, church buildings are built and church programs are financed largely through the stewardship of Korean Christians. So vital is the church in Korea that it has supported many schools and has sent its own missionaries into China. Many Korean parents, like their counterparts in North America, have not received the gospel and so fail to understand the sacrificial giving that makes such a church possible. A demand that the daughter's money be returned comes as no surprise to the pastor. He has seen many times the truth of Christ's words. I came not to send peace, but a sword, and a man's foes shall be they of his own household. The father is sure of many things, but he is especially sure that the clothing the money represents is a necessity, not a luxury, and that the money itself was not easily come by. But his daughter has learned something he has yet to discover. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. This can never make sense to a man of the world. Very well, she may make her foolish sacrifice, but be sure she shall go without the new clothing the money might have purchased. And on such selflessness will the new church be built. The psalmist of antiquity sang, "My help cometh from the Lord." The early morning prayer meeting held before the day of work begins, is stirring evidence of abundant faith. My flesh and my heart faileth, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Congregations across the land are rebuilding their churches literally from the ground up. To their meager earnings, which help buy materials, they are adding the work of their own hands. Theirs is a devotion that is deep indeed, as deep as their aspirations are high. And so one more church is built. It is only one of more than 1,700 church buildings destroyed by the war. And yet this one is a witness to loyal discipleship. The short-term Bible Institute that is held in the Korean church is an intensive training period for adults. In the farming areas, the classes are organized during the slack period so that the girls and women of the farms can be joined by the men in a united program of study. The Bible Institute is a powerful influence in any church. The experience deepens the spiritual insights of the people. Christian fellowship is enriched, and ties of Christian love are strengthened. These results are intangible, to be sure, and not easily seen nor appreciated by the non-Christian. But one result is apparent to everyone who lives within the reach of one of these Korean congregations. For this church is a strongly evangelistic church. After each daily session, these practicing Christians fan out over the town and countryside. And they will not be content until all have received the invitation to profess Christ as their Savior and to become a part of his growing church. They go literally into the marketplace, the crossroads of the community, preaching to those who will take the time to listen. Thus is the Great Commission being obeyed in this war-shaped corner of the earth. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. The right hand of the Korean pastor is the women's preaching band. Trained for effective Christian service, they guide the congregation in its local outreach to the unchurched of the area. Throughout Korea, over 1,000 women serve the church in this vital capacity. The work does not end with the close of the service. Portions of the Gospels, printed in the Korean tongue, are distributed to those who show either real concern or casual interest. This evangelism is as simple and direct as that of the first-century disciples. House-to-house visitation is carried on 2 by 2. The farmer in the field, the housewife local well to draw water, the mother in her home, all are given the opportunity to know Christ and his church. In the program of house-to-house calling, the church gives a large place to the refugee families who have taken up temporary quarters far from home. Among the people of Korea displaced by the war, many are members of the more than 1,800 congregations that have been dispersed. These are welcomed into the family of the local church. Others are invited to share in the ongoing work of the kingdom. This enthusiastic and consistent effort of the Korean Christians has made the rehabilitation of the organized church a unique event in 20th century Christianity. Korea has an area the size of Kansas, only 1/4 the size of the province of Ontario. In 3 years of war, parts of the land have been the scene of violent battle as many as 4 times. And yet, since hostilities began, the Korean church has recorded a substantial increase in membership. This is more than a measure of the church's growth. It is a measure of its vitality. There are still the well-to-do in Korea. Most of the people have paid a high price in poverty and hunger. Yet the property of many has remained intact. To these, the church makes a special appeal. Out of their gratitude for the blessings of God, who has spared them in the midst of disaster, their response has been immediate, and their giving has been generous.
손자씨, 뭘 하십니까?
목사님,
다 평안하십니까?
The unsightly tools of war stand where they were abandoned. Because of the shifting back and forth of troops, there has not been time to remove the many reminders of battle. Neglected tanks and guns and hidden minefields are scattered across the land.
목사님 안녕하세요. 저희들은 다 잘 있습니다.
영자야, 조심하라.
영자! 영자야!
The Mission Hospital at Seoul offers its healing services to all who are in need of emergency care. The child who suffers from a cruel accident of war has immediate access to its staff and facilities. Family, social position, and economic status are irrelevant. The hospital is a cooperative institution supported by several missions, and its chief commodity is Christian love. What can the pastor, the sister, and the doctor say to a child? What words are there to say when a child loses a limb through the cruelty that is war? What does one say? To the Korean doctor, this is not a news story, but he is a Christian, and he knows that to the child it is all terribly new. What can one say? Our Father, forgive us, thy children, for we know not what we do. Then the children were brought to him, that he might lay his hands on them and pray. The disciples rebuked the people, but Jesus said, "Let the children come to me, and do not hinder them, for to such belongs the kingdom of heaven." And he laid his hands on them. The healing of the broken body takes time. During the days of convalescence, the child begins to adjust herself to a new fact in her life. She must learn to walk all over again, for she is to have a brand new leg. If she can believe what her new friend tells her, her new leg will someday be as good as the one she has lost. But it will take a lot of patience, a lot of practice, and a lot of time. The missionary takes his measurements to the orthopedic appliance shop of the hospital. Here, skilled craftsmen specialize in the building of happy days and bright futures for the handicapped. The foreman of the shop has been engaged in this work for many months, and he knows he is manufacturing more than mere artificial limbs, for he has seen despair give way to hope and sorrow retreat before gladness. Only the love of Christ has made this thing possible. In a few days, the specially built appliance is given the finishing touches and a final check. There is a price on the time and materials that have gone into this thing, and the family will pay what they can afford. But there is no price on the faith that has been invested here. There is no price tag on love. It takes a lot of courage to start all over again. But children have plenty of courage. And there are others to keep you company. Others who are facing the same job of readjustment. Through modern techniques developed in this field, miracles are still being wrought. Patience and practice and the encouragement of a Christian friend put the impossible within reach. Accident, disease, and war maim and destroy. The staff of the hospital are dedicated to healing the hurt and repairing what is broken.
여보세요? 여보세요?
The Christian ministry of medicine has an influence far beyond the restoration of the body. Through its service flows the comforting ministry of love. And those outside the church are often won to its cause, not through gratitude alone, but through their discovery that this thing is of God. At last, the day arrives when it is time to go home. Time to say the last goodbyes. Time to try to express a father's gratitude for the care and love that have been so generously bestowed on the child. Time for doctor and pastor to thank God for such a rewarding ministry. The strength of the Korean church lies in the dedicated lives and the courageous hearts of its members. Adversity has not defeated them. Rather, in adversity, they have conquered. Because a devastating war has torn the land asunder, They need the help of Christian friends around the world. As we extend that help, we may yet claim a real victory in Korea, a victory more lasting than a military one. For this is the victory, even our faith